Oh wow.
Carlos Alcaraz in this season so far has clocked in an impressive 55% of all returned points won. That doesn't necessarily mean he's winning all those return games by clocking up into that percentage, because you can easily win a lot of points that get lost into the ether because you've won a few points on someone's serve and then actually ultimately lost that game. However, 55% is an astounding level of returning on the ATP Tour. And the reason I bring this up, because obviously we know that what I said before, you have to be looking for, are they beating the coin flip? And Alcaraz is beating the coin flip on returning. And arguably one of the greatest returners the game has ever seen. Yes, you could say Djokovic, but humour me, I like Murray more. One of the greatest returners the game has ever seen, and you still can't deny this, whether you deny me the big four versus the big three. That's fine, I don't mind that debate. But you can't deny that Murray is one of the greatest returners of all time. In 2016, Murray had exactly the same return statistic of all points won on the tour in that season, in that year. And I know for a fact that Djokovic has also, over many seasons, clocked in similar statistics around 53 to the 57% mark of return points won. Okay, you're thinking, who cares? Okay, he can return. But that's another thing. It's one thing to be a great server. It's one thing to win all your serve points. But if you can't take someone else's game, at the end of that set, it goes to a tiebreak.
This is why when we were talking about big servers on grass and at Wimbledon, this is why often they just come unstuck towards the latter end of the tournament, because you've got players that can get more of their returns in against their serves, and then these guys are not able to return particularly well when they're returning the other person's serve, and so that kind of balance sort of shifts more in favor of the other player. You do have to be incredible at returning though. Like I remember when Murray played Raonic in that 2016 final, Murray was able to return, like, I think there was nearly a 140 mile an hour serve in there, something like that. And he still won that. He won that point, I think, which was just ridiculous. But it's more the kind of, you're trying to put pressure back on the opponent, right? So the more you can make, even if you don't win a lot of those their service games, if you're making inroads and then you're able to hold serve fairly comfortably, then it just shifts that pressure back onto them each time. And then that can then lead to them making less first serves, or because they're maybe having to go for more on the first serve now, or hit it closer to the lines. So it's all about trying to shift that pressure and the kind of on the mental side of the game in your favor. And I think that's why returning has been, like, I mean, Djokovic has a pretty much complete game, but returning is arguably like the most important aspect of his game, some would say, because of that.
You made is absolutely bang on. If you can return the big boy serves and get them back, just putting the pressure on. Returning the serve is half the battle there, because people are expecting you to just either make a mistake or get something weak back. That really does aid that mental battle that you're having at the same time. Sometimes we make tennis sound so hard, the physical battle and then the mental battle, but that it is the hardest sport in the world. So therefore, all of these aspects are so important to consider. And if you're someone who's just starting out on tennis and you're thinking, oh Christ, I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I'm having, battles like that. Well, you've also got to look at these points of the game as allowing you an access to the more fun parts of the game as well, or the bits you haven't played as much of. For example, if you can't serve, you can't start the very point that you're trying to play. And if you can't return, then you're making half of the points that you play quite boring, because there's not much that you can do about the outcome. So like I say, it's very important to have a very balanced approach to all of these different shots that you have in tennis, so that you have an access to every part of the game.
Yeah, and if I'm trying to improve my return game, what kind of couple of key things should I focus on? Like, how should I be hitting the return, and kind of where should I be trying to hit that return? to the
Well,
other
I'll
side.
tell you what, if you're not used to it so much, try and give yourself as much time as possible. So you're going to stand a little bit further back than maybe you'll see. So some people stand in the court. Don't recommend that. Take about a meter behind the baseline, in that diagonal behind the service box that whoever's serving into. Give yourself that time, and then ultimately give yourself the shortest swing possible as well. You'll be surprised again if you don't have the time. Big swing can easily take too long, and you're like, no, it's 0.001 seconds worth of movement, but that could be too much. So very important that you give yourself as much time as possible. So that's stand far back, shorten that swing. Standing far back doesn't work if someone has a very slow serve and it just plopped into the box. You'll work that out, but then you don't need to stand far back because you've got the time, right? Because they're slow serves. So yeah, all of this stuff, it does help. But yeah, the short swing is definitely the important bit there.
Yeah, I find that's what people often struggle with the most, is that they think because the person is hitting the ball faster or they have less time that they need to almost swing harder. It's almost like a natural kind of defense mechanism, like almost like that fight or flight mode.
Oh, I've got more power than you.
And then the ball just like ends up in the like park opposite. But it is trying to shorten that swing, almost imagining there's like almost like a wall or something behind you that you can't kind of go back past. And it's a similar thing with volleys as well. Like people tend to, like, because the ball's going faster, they're like, their juices get going and they're like, oh, like they naturally kind of take a bit more of a backswing when you kind of want to do the opposite. So it's almost just trying to like train that kind of movement. And then, you get a bit more comfortable with it. And then you're able to then start getting that return a bit deeper. And then you move on to the kind of the next stages. Hey there, tennis friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that episode, then you might want to click here for this one. See you there.